Yo, what up, Tush here. Today we're going to focus on Ruan Mei. We haven't made a should you pull video in a very long time, and I wanted to give my final opinion on this character, and then we'll talk more in depth about her teams and all of that jazz. Now, before we do hop into it, let me just say my Ruan Mei has very low investment. I don't even have all of her traces unlocked, and she still gets the job done. This character is so strong to the point where, like, having this trace, like, it's great for dot characters, but I mean, you'd see I don't have it unlocked, and I still have been able to clear content. Having the energy regeneration at the start of her turn is very nice, but it's never really made a difference for me in the combat, if I'm being honest. And then this here, increased damage for all allies, right? The damage increase is very nice. For dot teams especially, this is huge. It hasn't really made a difference for me because I haven't unlocked it. And then all these break effects stats is very nice because the character scales off a break effect from her damage and her buffing capabilities. But as you can see, I still haven't unlocked these either. So my Ruan Mei is as low investment as it gets, really. I mean, I wouldn't say low investment to the point where she has nothing, but I would say mid investment. She has 150 speed, so she's relatively fast. I like her being this fast because she gives skill points to the team. Then my break effect is 130, it's not even 160, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter because I don't even have the bonus trace unlocked to give the extra damage if you have more than this amount of break effect up to 180, I believe. I am, however, using Memories of the Past or Refinement 5, which does give a nice chunk of energy to this character whenever she takes her turn and attacks the enemy. But if I was free to play and I did not have that luxury, then I would just use Messaging Hogs because she's going to get hit by the enemy. She's a Harmony character. There's plenty of times I get hit by the enemy, and having this like means she'll generate energy on those turns that she gets hit. So this is the first character in the game I can say, no matter what investment you have on the character, low, mid, or high, she will get the job done. She is a very strong buffing character, so strong. And the huge thing about Ruan Mei is that she has buffs that last for 3 turns. 3 turn is very, very strong in this game. For reference, Ruan Mei's ultimate has a 2 turn duration, but it's so strong to the point to where they wanted to sell you an extra turn on the ultimate by getting her idle on 6. So having a 3 turn duration on any buffing capability or any defensive buffing capability is going to be very strong for the team. The kicker for this character is that she starts the fight with her elemental skill, so you don't have to use a skill point, which means this character right off the bat becomes a skill point generating character for the team. So she has a 3 turn duration on her elemental skill, a 3 turn duration on her ultimate if you have idle on 6, but she gets energy relatively fast, so having idle on 6 doesn't really make that much of a difference on the character. If you start the fight using her technique, you're going to give skill points to the team and have those buffs for 3 turns. She is a very strong character. And that's only the surface level of this character because there's other things I haven't gone to. Giving your team break effect is very nice for dot characters. Giving your team more damage if you have higher amounts of break effect on this character. Her overall damage on top of your damage dealer's damage is very nice. And then she gives a speed boost on top of that. Again, I don't know why they even released this character in the state she's in. She's just way too strong. Well, with that being said, she has to be strong because she's competing with a very strong character too, and that character is Bronya. In order for her to be better than Bronya, or up to par with Bronya, she has to be strong herself. And for some teams, she really does meet that bar. And that team is dual DPS. Or should I say, the more DPSs you have with Ruan Mei, the more damage you do. You're incentivized for having as many damage dealers as you can have in the team with her. So if you really want to have 3 damage dealing characters, as long as you make sure that you have the right speed amounts, you can utilize Ruan Mei because again, she buffs the whole team and buffs that last for 3 turns. It's just strong for teams with many damage dealers in general. For the monoquantum team, she's really good to the point where if you're looking for an overall more flexible character and you are pressed for gems, but you really like monoquantum, to be completely honest here, Ruan Mei is the better pickup over Sparkle because this character is more universal and can be slotted inside the same team. You can just replace your defensive option with any other character of the quantum or ice element. For the other dual DPS team with Topaz and Jinx, she's really good here too because again, she buffs the whole team. And for characters that have backloaded damage, that buff that lasts for 3 turns is going to be very strong for these characters because that means their backloaded damage is going to be amplified from those buffs she provides. For hyper carry teams, she's really good there too. In fact, I don't even have to use Ting Yun in this team because Ruan Mei gives so much damage bonus, so much break effect, so much speed. She gives so many stats to this damage dealer, making her very nice in hyper carry teams alongside Bronya, who gives a lot of damage boost already, but gives attack and crit damage as well. So these two even out one another. And considering Bronya is a character that is skill point hungry, just like Argenti here, Ruan Mei, being the completely skill point positive character she is a very nice character to have in the team alongside these two characters. Now, the one character I don't have is Jing Lu, but Jing Lu alongside Blade makes one of the best teams in the game with Ruan Mei. And that's because Jing Lu is just a very strong character. She's very busted. But if you combine the strongest damage dealer with the strongest harmony character or strongest buffing character in the game, you have an unstoppable duo. And if you put a character in that team that is a sub DPS, can be played skill point neutral, so it doesn't take any skill points away from the team, and is able to function very nicely alongside the best damage dealer and the best buffer in the game, well, you have a very strong team of that. If you have Ruan Mei, you're able to slot her in many team comps. She is the most universal character in the game. And even if you don't have any team comps in mind right now, she is still a nice pickup to have for the future. Because as we receive more damage dealers, her value is going to continue to go up. Now, I'm not saying she is a game changer, but she is a very strong character. She essentially allows you to play the game much more easily for non-hyper carry teams. Bronya still remains the queen of hyper carry. Even though Ruan Mei did release in the state she's in, that doesn't mean Bronya's gotten worse. That just means now you have essentially two Bronyas. So while you may end up not using them together, you can use them together and have very nice results for your hyper carry teams. However, as time goes on, there may be other characters to replace Bronya in her best teams, or her other teams, I should say, because that seems to be the route that they're taking with the Harmony path going forward. And there is one character I don't like using Ruan Mei too much, but can be very nice alongside Ruan Mei, and that's going to be Daniel. Now, this character is going to like Sparkle much more than Ruan Mei, so that's why I'm not really wanting to include Daniel as being a nice character to use alongside Ruan Mei. But again, she's a character that does generate skill points for the team. It gives buffs that last for 3 turns. Even though Daniel's a character that doesn't have any backloaded damage, those buffs she gives is still very nice. And break effect, for a character like him that is of the imaginary element, means you'll delay the enemy's action a little more. All of those extra stats she gives adds up. And the speed is very nice. That means you can have Daniel in a speedy build. Now let's take Kafka, who is going to be the best benefitter from Ruan Mei in my honest opinion, because everything Ruan Mei has from her kid means Kafka is able to utilize those said things. And Ruan Mei gives a lot of stats and break effect. And Kafka is a character that scales really nicely with break effect. But the problem is it's been very hard to utilize break effect in her overall stats because you've been allocating those stats to other stats like attack and speed. But I really liked using Fermata alongside Ruan Mei because the added break effect she has in Fermata alongside the 20% Ruan Mei provides means you'll have 52% break effect. And for a character that is able to detonate on the AoE with her ultimate, breaking those enemies' toughness with the ultimate is going to deal a large amount of damage alongside Ruan Mei's damage, and it means that you have a stronger dot when you break those enemies' toughness. And considering that's a free-to-play Lycone, it's very nice to use with a character that is already free-to-play friendly. I showed you my very low investment, Ruan Mei. Considering Kafka is going to have her rerun very, very soon, why not talk about this character as well? She's a very nice character to add to your roster because she's gotten stronger with the release of Ruan Mei, and going forward, she's going to have a lot more value when we receive the 5-star Sampo, or better known as Black Swan. Now, what I do like about Ruan Mei is that she helps Kafka reach the speed criteria she needs for the Glamoff set, which is the best relic set to use on this character when it comes to the planar set. This increases the character's attack and increases the character's damage. And for Dot's damage over time, well, its scale is based off of 2 things, your elemental damage and your attack. So the 10 speed Ruan Mei gives on top of the 100 base speed Kafka has means with the speed boost already on the character, you only need 25 more speed in order to get that 160 speed you need for the character to meet the 160 speed criteria for Glamoff set. And that's a lot more easier to achieve. So Kafka has gotten a lot stronger since the release of Ruan Mei, but she's going to get even more value with Black Swan. So overall, for how free-to-play friendly she is, because we made a video on her in the past when she first released, she still held up relatively well. And I'll be honest here, I don't think I've ever had to change Kafka's build other than just getting those new relic sets that are added to Honkai Star Rail that buffs dot characters. But after that, I don't think I'm ever going to have to change her relics, and I don't think I'm ever going to farm for this character ever again. because once you meet that spree criteria, once you have the amount of attack you think you need, you don't need anything else in the character. And for me personally, that beats the headache of having to farm crit stats. Because if you get a damage dealer here and you get another damage dealer, we're receiving Dark Ratio for free, who we will be covering in today's video. You have so many damage dealers that scale off a crit. Farming crit stats in this game is enough to make me pull my hair out. And I don't think I want to do that with another character. So Kafka was the perfect character for me. And if that's you, then this is the character for you also. Now, because she doesn't scale off a crit, that means her damage ceiling isn't infinite like some other characters. Because having crit in this game is a lot to buff your damage crazy. And some characters like Jing can put out a lot more damage than Kafka in many scenarios. But we are receiving more supports for Kafka, which will make the character much better. There's only so high you can go with investment when it comes to attack-based builds over characters that can crit also. And as I said before, since Kafka is a character that doesn't crit, you can throw in many damage dealers alongside her that also don't need crit with Ruan Mei in the party, and you'll have a very strong Dot team. And considering Dot wants to take advantage of break effect anyways, every character here also loves Ruan Mei. And Honkai Star Rail is a game that is centered around breaking the enemy's toughness. If you have a team with many different elements, you'll consistently break the enemy's toughness more than teams that rely on 1 to 2 weaknesses, when you have characters that cover 3 to 4 weaknesses. What I do like about Dot in Honkai Star Rail is that it has very nice synergy with Freeze. And to be honest, one of my favorite teams now is using Ruan Mei with Jeopard in most of the teams in the game, and Dot is no exception. Kafka is able to detonate the dots, and then Jeopard goes in and freezes, or you break with Ruan Mei or Jeopard, the enemy is frozen, and then once the enemy takes their turn, they will take the dot damage, delay their action because they'll be frozen, and then you'll deal more dot damage when they take their turn. Ruan Mei, with her ultimate, those enemies will be broken, so then they'll delay their action again, and then take dot damage, take their turn again, they're taking dot damage once more. And that's not even considering Kafka going in and detonate those dots herself with her elemental skill or her ultimate. So many procs on the enemy before they even actually get a turn to attack you. Even if you don't want to use Ruan Mei, you don't have the character, having Kafka alongside Asta is still a very nice choice, because Asta still was the premier character before Ruan Mei did release for Dot teams. The speed and attack is everything Kafka can appreciate. And that means your Glamoff set is now a lot more easier to meet that criteria with the character and other Dot characters in the team. And then I just love using Himiko alongside Kafka. This is one of my favorite duos in the game, because when the enemies are weak to lightning and fire, there's very few that are in the game, but when there is, you're going to have a great time. And for the newest game mode in Honkai Star Rail, Pure Fiction, this team feels so freaking good. I love it. But for Pure Fiction, anything goes, and I found myself using Argenti alongside Kafka. And I said in the past this would be a synergy that wasn't really that good. I mean, if the enemy is weak to lightning and physical, it can work, especially in Pure Fiction, because Argenti is going to get a lot of energy, take a lot of ultimate procs, and then Kafka can detonate those ultimate procs from Argenti with the break, which means you end up having a nice synergistic duo. So Kafka, even though she seems to be the premier Dot character, she's flexible enough to be utilized outside of Dot teams, and in those same teams I showed you, she's had very nice results. Now, of course, you will need investment on those other characters like Himiko, should have very nice crit stats, and your Argenti needs to be on the top of his A game. But considering that those are characters you can use alongside Kafka, as characters that can be skill point negative alongside Kafka, as long as you have other characters in the team that either provide skill points or at least don't take away too many skill points from Kafka, you'll have a very nice time with those characters alongside the queen here. Oh, and consider getting this character on her rerun when she does come back for Kafka. The energy and attack she provides is invaluable for Dot teams, and considering she has a lot of cleansing, which is pretty much cream on top of the cake, she's going to be the best defensive option to use in the team alongside Kafka and her other Dot characters. Now, we did touch on Dr. Ratio's potential light cone in the previous video, and considering he's going to be giving this for free in a few days at the time of recording, his light cone isn't a bad option to roll for if you don't want any of the characters in this patch. 5-star light cones means you'll have higher base stats than 4-star light cones in the light cones from the Simulator Universe shop from Herta. So that means for damage dealers, the extra attack you get is a game changer. For the passive, you get crit damage, and for every debuff on the enemy, you increase the crit damage dealt to that target, which stacks up to 3 times. So you're getting so much crit damage. For a character that wants to crit every single hit, because he is a hunt character, so having those hits crit matters more than characters that have multi-hits like Jing, for instance. Again, every character should crit that scales off a crit, but for hunt characters especially, if you don't crit that single hit, you're missing out on a huge chunk of damage. So the crit damage you get from having a higher crit rate is going to yield a lot more damage for the character. And once you use your ultimate to attack the enemy target, you receive the added effect, which increases damage dealt by 36%, and your follow-up attacks ignore 8% of the enemy's defense. Ignoring defense in Honkai Star, where enemies in the late game have high defenses, making it hard to do damage unless you have a defense breaker or use an element the enemy is weak to, is going to be a game changer for Dr. Ratio, and whenever he's fighting enemies that are weak to imaginary. And in combination with Silver Wolf, this becomes crazy damage dealt to them. So if I'm being completely honest here, there is no other light cone in the game right now that is going to compare to Dr. Ratio's light cone for him. So if the enemy has spawns, you're going to miss out on getting that crit rate, which, if you're depending on it in fights, will matter in the long run. And with further inspection, light cones like Swordsplay might not be as good as we might think on Dr. Ratio, and that's because he might do so much damage to the point where you're just deleting enemies. And considering he has hits in his kit, but not as many multi-hits like a character like Yang Qing or Seal, is going to be kind of hard to stack the light cone compared to those characters. And Dr. Ratio is ultimate dependent, and he has follow-up attacks in his kit. This light cone increases basic attack and skill, but no other hunt character has been able to utilize it either, so I imagine Dr. Ratio won't be able to either. This light cone is just bad. The Simulated Universe light cone does give an increase in crit rate, which is very nice, and you get attack percentage increase as well. But the thing is about Dr. Ratio versus a character like Seal, Seal will a lot of the time kill an enemy, get an additional turn, and then take more advantage of the attack. So I see this light cone being much more utilized on Seal versus Dr. Ratio, but he still is a character that can utilize this light cone well enough. And considering some of those 4-star light cones are gacha options, for some of you, you may not have high refinements on them, so then you have even less DPS compared to his 5-star light cone. So for some of you that ends up having his light cone versus those of you that do not, you're going to see a clear difference in power and numbers, that's for sure. And take it from someone who currently owns Seal's best light cone. This light cone gives a lot of damage, crit damage for the character. Crit damage to her ultimate, crit damage to her elemental skill, and crit damage to her basic attack, to the point where it allows me to get those additional resets, get additional turn, and then deal so much more damage on top of that with the added crit damage, which allows me to get those one-shots more often. So Dr. Ratio may not be a character like Seal that has a high risk, high reward playstyle, but he is still a character that wants to deal as much damage as possible in those single hits, because he is a hunt character. So just like Seal, he can benefit really immensely from having his 5-star premium option light cone. In Blade, what is there to say about this character? If you don't have Jinglu, to be honest, just skip him. If you have Jinglu and you want a sub DPS to have in the same team with her, and maybe you have Ruan Mei already, and you have the spare pools for a character, or maybe you got lucky and got Ruan Mei early, then Blade is a pretty nice pickup, because in the team of Ruan Mei and Jinglu, he's amazing. But outside of that, and maybe you don't have Bronya in your account, just skip the character, to be honest. In all seriousness, considering he is a sub DPS, he's going to hold up relatively well in Honkai Star. He's a skill point neutral damage dealer, which for some teams is all you can ask for. So if you use him in a team with other characters that are also skill point neutral, while you have more damage on the field without consuming skill points away from the team like other skill point hungry damage dealers like Seal, QQ, and Daniel. Now I am saying the most greedy damage dealers in the game. And there is other characters that aren't as greedy but are main DPS. But Blade being able to put out high amounts of damage as a sub DPS without consuming those skill points means he is an overall very nice pickup to have for your account for the long term. But in the current era of Honkai Star as it stands right now, you need him? Absolutely not. He's probably the lowest value pickup in Honkai Star right now, because as it stands right now in the near future, it doesn't seem like there's going to be anything to make the character better than he already is right now. He feels pretty complete if I'm being honest. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Who would I roll for if I was a completely new player and I didn't know what to roll for? Maybe I have not watched any videos on Honkai Star and I just need a quick decision to make because time is ticking. I would definitely roll for the character that I find the most enjoyable to use, And for me personally, in the whole patch, that would be Kafka. And I mean, it is in the favor of having Kafka. Well, you have Ruan Mei right there. You might as well pick her up also. And then heck, you may end up wanting to get Black Swan, who is coming next patch. So for a new player, even though you might be pressed up for gems because that is 3 limited characters, you never know, try your luck. You may get all 3, you may get all 3 early, and make people like me salty that has to lose every 50-50, go to Hard Pity twice, just to get one character. While you got all 3 characters and less pulls it took me to get 1 character. Anyways, that's the video here. Thank you for watching and have a nice rest of your day. Good luck. Peace.